One day, the neighbor texted me and asked if I could watch a little girl while she took the older boys to the doctor. Of course, I don't mind. The boys were sick. Well, the little girl comes over and I tell her she can go watch TV or go downstairs to play in the crafts room. Crafts room's basically a room full of yarn and fabric with a quilting table in it. She chooses the craft room. She is down there playing with her dolls and talking the entire time. I can see straight into the basement and hear her perfectly from the kitchen. That's where I am, making birthday pies for a friend. I started listening to what she was saying. She is having a really weird conversation, saying things like, well, my mom doesn't go to church either, and people think God is fake. Like my friend's mommy, and church shoes hurt my feet, and maybe that's why she doesn't go. So I go downstairs and ask her, who is she talking to? And the conversation goes something like this. I ask her, who are you talking to, sweetheart? She goes, the priest who lives here. I go, what priest? I'm not a priest. She goes, girls can't be priests. I go, that's very true, but Jake and Phil aren't priests. She goes, I know, Jake makes swords and the priest lives here too. I tell her, no, the priests and the penguins live in the other house down the street. Before I could even finish that last sentence, she goes, nope, one still lives here. I tell her that people from the church live down the street, not here, but she tells me that you don't know who's in your house all the time with you. At this point, I just go back upstairs because I feel foolish for arguing with a small child, and she kind of freaked me out a bit, but I don't mention this to anyone. We find out about 2 months after this that our house had been, at one time, owned by the church about 80 years ago and sold to a private owner about 60 years ago. I know she could have overheard someone saying something about our house, or she could have been playing the child's game, or any number of solutions. However, this kid is always saying random stuff like this. This isn't an isolated incident. According to my mother in law, she was over here the other day and said something like, your grandma thinks your so and so is too noisy. And my mother in law said, honey, my grandma is dead. The kid poker faced it up and said, I know, and walked off. Yesterday she was over here playing in our yard and she asked me if I had said anything bad about a man. And I said no and asked why she would ask me that. She got up from a swing and said, the man who follows you looks mad at you. Also, his bird is gone. And then, casual as can be, she goes, can you help me weed your garden? She's weird. Also, things go missing if she comes near our house. She doesn't even have to come into our house, just on the property. We'll all be searching for keys, books, wallets, coats, shoes for days, sometimes even weeks. I was renting a basement apartment a few years back. The place sort of sucked. It was cold as hell and obviously not intended as a bedroom, with exposed cinder blocks for two of the walls. But hey, as a student, you take what you get. At night, I kept hearing the scraping noise from the walls right underneath my bed, sometimes slow and deliberate, and at other times a sort of skittering, frenzied sound. I had assumed that there was some sort of animal nesting in the wall and mentioned it to the owner. He said the foundation was improperly laid and moles and rabbits could occasionally get in between a couple of blocks. He said they couldn't fix it before I'd move out. Most likely he says that to all the tenants, so I just put up with it. One morning I woke up and there was dust all over the floor of my room and a big smear of it on my pillow next to my face with my windows wide open. The best rationalization I had at the time was I had left the windows open and maybe some of the dirt from the construction down the road had blown in while I was asleep. I put it out of my mind and life went on. From that night forward through, I didn't hear any more scraping from the walls. Later, when I was moving out, when moving the bed out of my room, I noticed it. Underneath the bed, there were little cinder block chips and an old rusty rail spike, along with a hole in the wall about a foot and a half wide. I still remember the feeling spotting that. My blood turned to ice and my stomach knotted up. The hole was impossibly dark. None of the light from the room even seemed to touch it. I ran upstairs and grabbed a flashlight from one of my boxes and shot into the hole. There was a little crawl space, completely bricked in. No way in or out, save the newly opened hole into my room. The walls were covered with geometric patterns scraped into the brick. Squiggles, triangles, what looked like a distorted stick man. Layers of them, some faded and hardly visible, others freshly carved. The floor was covered in thick coat of dust and little shards of rock. In the corner there was a straw doll stained red. I had been sleeping in the bed inches from this for 1.5 months. 2.5 months mere feet from whatever the hell had been in there previously. It's safe to say I don't like dust anymore. I was working as an inspector for foreclosed homes at the time. I would inspect these houses alone to go through the damages. Most of these houses were pretty trashed. This one wasn't though. The house had strange customizations to it. All of the doors were wider than most doors. None of the rooms had closets, just square boxes. Even the kitchen that had once been open to the rest of the house was walled in, with only one door for in and out access. All of the walls were white. Not one wall had any sort of custom paint, poster or picture, except one, on the wall of the largest room in the house. This was the picture. The picture was unsettling. Who would frame and hang something like that? And even better question, why didn't they take it with them? I continued on my inspection. As I worked my way to the outside of the house, I saw that the entire backyard was flooded. A backyard hose had left about an inch of water across the cement section of the patio and the grass. I shut off the water and went back inside, locking the back door behind me. It was time to put up the smoke detectors that were missing in the house. As I walked to the first bedroom closet to the front door, when I heard the water running. Seeing as the backyard was flooded, I assumed it was just a bad valve back there, and the hose would start to allow water flow again. I decided to go through the master bedroom that had a sliding door to the backyard. I got to the bedroom door and realized the water is still running, and it was much louder than I thought. I opened the door and it hit me. The water was coming from the master bedroom shower. I stopped in the doorway after it became obvious the shower was on. A split second after I stopped moving, the shower turned off. All I could hear was the drips from the shower head. I carefully entered the master bathroom to see if we had a homeless person using the empty house. Unfortunately, there was no one in the bathroom. For some reason, it still didn't occur to me to leave at this point. I exited the master bedroom and continued to the bedrooms to install the smoke detectors. I went down the hallway and into the bedroom that looked down into the hallway to the front door. My heart sunk. The front door was closed. I told myself how. I always leave the front door open when I enter empty properties. I went to go open the front door and exited the bedroom. I looked down the hallway to the master bedroom where the shower had turned itself on and then off again. What happened next was truly unexplainable. I heard what I could only describe as a woman's voice making a loud grunt noise, like she was lifting something heavy. The master bedroom door slammed with so much force that I don't even know how it broke the hollow frame. I felt a fear that I've never felt before. Quickly, I grabbed my things and left. I'm not a believer of the paranormal, ghosts, etc., but I have no explanation for what happened in this house.